This video is about scheduling a Datahub upload of users. So really there's quite a few things that are going to be happening in this video. It's going to be a little longer. We're going to be going over some basic stuff about Datahub, but we're also going to be looking at a user upload file and then how to schedule that. I chose a user file to schedule because that's often the one that people use the most. They're often the longest, the largest. It's got the most data in it, and it's the best one often to upload because if you try to do it manually, it would time out. So just to kind of orient ourselves into Datahub and a Moodle site, if you have one of the most current versions of Datahub on your site, it might look a little different than what you might have been used to if you've recently upgraded. Datahub no longer presents itself as a block. It's been added to the local plugins, and so for that reason, you're not going to find it as a block anymore. I personally like the block, and so what I've done is I've kind of utilized my admin bookmarks block to kind of take the place of what used to be the Datahub block. So what I did is I just added a block, the admin bookmarks block, and then I placed in some links to the things that I normally go to. So because otherwise the place that you would have to go to find Datahub is down here under Site Administration and Plugins, Local Plugins, and then there's the Datahub plugins. And so the main one is the Manage Plugins link. Okay, the settings are in here as well, so if you wanted to play with some of the settings, the field mapping for the different things and things like that are there. The other thing that's a little bit different is that the logs, the Datahub logs, which are really important, especially when you're scheduling a Datahub upload, have been moved down to reports. So there's the Datahub logs. And so what I did is when you go to one of these pages, say I went to the Manage Plugins pages, if you have the admin bookmarks block on your page, on your front page, then whatever page you go to, basically there would be an option to bookmark this page. So I went to the page, I clicked bookmark this page, and now it adds that link into my admin bookmarks. It's just an easier way to do it because personally I was used to the block, and that block not being there anymore is a little annoying. The idea behind the admin bookmarks block is that only an admin could see it, so you don't have to really worry about that, about other users being able to see it, just like the original Datahub block was. So with that out of the way, let's talk about what we need to do in order to do a bulk upload of users. Okay, really the first thing that you need to focus on is the user upload file itself, and I've got a sample Google document here that's kind of set up a lot like an Excel file, and I have it properly formatted as a user upload file needs to be for Datahub. Again, just like most things in Datahub, you've got to have an action in that first column. So really this A1 cell needs to always be action. That's kind of like the biggest rule of thumb that you have to follow. Because we're creating new users, it's all set to create. Now if I wanted to update the users, I could use the action of update, or I could use the action of delete if I wanted to delete users. The profile fields B through H, those are the required fields that need to be there for a user to be created. You've got to have a username, a first name, last name, password, email, country, city. Those are just kind of like the non-negotiables that you need to have included for a valid user to be created. And again, that's really, really important. Also, make sure that when you're doing this, you're formatting it right. Make sure that there's no extra spaces after it. So it's, a simple space like that could throw off everything and send out an error. So it's kind of good just to double check that everything's good. All lowercase, no errant spaces. This final one, column I, is a custom field that I've added to the Moodle site. Any custom field you want, you can add into a Datahub upload file. The key is you just got to follow the formula. And the formula is you type in profile underscore field underscore, and then the last part is the short name of the profile field. So whatever that short name is that you entered into the into the settings when you created that profile field, that is what you insert right there. Exactly the same. If it's lowercase, uppercase, it's got to be the same, and you put it in there. So in this way, you could add in as many extra profile fields as you wanted to, and just make sure that the information is, of course, correct. So this being a correct file, I know there's only 6, so really technically what I could do is just upload this manually, but we're going to pretend that there's 1,000, 10,000 users or whatever, and we wanted to upload them in stages. So I'm going to first of all take this and convert it to a CSV file, depending on what the program you're using. I'm just going to download it as a CSV file. And once I've got it downloaded as a CSV file, then we can go on to the next step, which is to schedule a task to run in Datahub. So the next step in the process, after we've kind of successfully formatted the upload document itself, is we need to basically tell Datahub to process a file every so often. We need to schedule a task. And so to do that, I'm going to go down here to my kind of homemade Datahub block and click on Manage Programs. And of course, this is going to give me all of the different options for importing and exporting. Now, normally what I use is just the run manually. Okay, I can just upload a file into there, and Datahub's going to process it and do all the things that I wanted it to do. The problem with running it manually, of course, is that you've only got so much time. You've basically got the time frame of the cron. The cron runs about every 5-6 minutes or so, and so whatever Datahub can process manually in those 5 or 6 minutes, it does. But then once that cron starts to run again, it times out and it basically just kind of gives up. And so the result is, if you've got 1,000 records, 1,000 lines of data to process, Datahub will probably get through with maybe a quarter of it, and then it'll just say, sorry, process lines 1 through 250, and that's it. And the other ones will never get going again. So you would have to take the document that you use to load, delete the first 250 lines, run it again, maybe it gets through with another 250, and so on and so on. So you end up having to basically break up the document into lots of smaller chunks, which is annoying and kind of time consuming. So rather than having to do that and be limited by how much data it can be processed within a 6-minute time frame, you can schedule a task. Okay, and the idea behind the schedule task is, of course, that you FTP the document onto the server. Datahub processes that document, but not only, again, you're still kind of bumping up into the 6-minute window of how much can it process in a cron run. The difference is, when it's a scheduled task, it will pick back up where it left off automatically at the next time the cron runs. So it'll still only process it in chunks, but it's going to just continually process it in those chunks until it completes it. So if there's 1,000 users, it's going to do the first 250 and then immediately pick back up at the next cron run, do another 250, and keep going and going and going until it's completed all of them. And of course, all of those logs are going to, all of those records of stuff is going to be sent to the log so that you can go back and view it. So really the first step is, as I said, after we've formatted the files, we need to set up a schedule. We need to tell Datahub to start running. You'll notice that you've got multiple options for scheduling, so you want to pick the right one. In this example, we're doing a user upload, so that's going to be a version 1 import, okay, as opposed to like an Ellis import of Ellis information. So you just want to make sure that it is that you're setting up a schedule to run for the thing that you want to run. So I'm going to go to version 1 import, and I'm going to click on Manage. Now, I haven't ever set up anything on this site yet, so you'll see that there's a thing here that says no scheduled Datahub jobs for version 1 imports. So we're going to start a new job and kind of give it a label. We can just call this the user upload. And notice for it says period, it's asking you how often do you want Datahub to run this job. Okay, if it's something like, usually I would say that you want to do it in minutes, because the idea here is you want it to repeat until it finishes whatever's been uploaded in there. Okay, it says please set this value to 5 minutes or longer to allow ample time for processing. Basically, you can set it to 10 minutes, and what that means is about every 10 minutes it's going to run based on when that cron is. Okay, so if the 10 minutes have lapsed, then the next time the cron runs, that's when it's going to run. It's not going to be exactly every 10 minutes. You have to remember Moodle and Ellis and Datahub, they're all kind of co-opting the same cron job to kind of time stuff too. So again, it's not going to be exactly every 10 minutes, but you want to kind of make sure that you give enough time for each cron run to go. So basically what we're saying is every 10 minutes, if there is a file that needs to be processed, then it's going to keep running that every 10 minutes. And that's really about all that you have to do. So it's basically saying that there's a new scheduled job called user upload, and it's going to run next at this time, and if we wanted to, we could modify it. Now, the idea again behind this is that we have to upload a file through the FTP onto the server into a very specific directory, and we're going to go to that part next. So basically, at 11:55 a.m., it's going to check to see if there's a file there, and if there's not a file there, then it's going to say whatever, shrug its shoulders, and move on to the next time. Okay. It's only going to do anything if it sees that there is a file there and it's got something to act on. Okay, so in a sense, this is going to run every 10 minutes for the rest of this site's life unless we delete it. It's not really adding that much processing power to anything because, again, it's just going to go and check to see if there's a file there. And if there's not a file there, then it moves on and it waits till the next time. It's only actually going to run and do something if we've uploaded something there. And that's going to be kind of the next step, is to take this file over here, the CSV file, and FTP it into the correct spot. Okay, so now that we have created the user file, we've set up a task to run on a schedule within Datahub, really the final step is just to connect to an FTP, connect via FTP to the server and upload the CSV file into it. Now, in order to do this, you're going to have to download an FTP client. The one that I've used for a long time is called FileZilla. It's just a free one. It's the one that was recommended to me by the person who showed me how to do this, and so I'm going to recommend it to you. There should be a URL that should pop up on this video in just a second that should be able to take you there. But there's numerous ones that are free. This is just the one, of course, that I've been using for a while. And you can download it, and then it's basically going to give you access to your server. Now, I've already filled in some of this information in here. Now it's blurred out because I don't want it to. I want to have it remain anonymous, but the idea here is you're going to have a host, a username, and a password, and then the port. All of this can be obtained by Remote Learner. If you don't already know it, just go to the support portal, put in a ticket, and we can make sure that we've gotten that to you. The other thing that you're probably going to want to check on, and I'm going to mention it now and also mention it again later in the video, is that you need to make sure that you've got write permission to the particular directory that we're going to be going to. Basically, for the most part, Remote Learner keeps a lot of these directories read-only, so that you can't modify or change the code of your Moodle site. But the directory that we're going to get to, you need to be able to have write permission to it, so you can access it and change the contents, uploading files, and things like that. Usually they do that when it's Datahub has been installed, but every once in a while it doesn't get done. And so if you go through this process and you try to upload the file like we're going to do in just a second, and you get an error that says that you don't have permission to do that, just go back and put in a ticket asking for write permission to the specific directory, and they can make that change for you. So I've already filled in a lot of this information, the host, the username, and the password. The host is going to be a series of numbers, usually starting with something like 208, yada yada yada, that calls to the specific server. The username is just a simple word. Oftentimes it's the same or relates very specifically to your organization name, so it should sound somewhat familiar. The password's pretty unique. I mean, it's got lots of crazy characters in there, uppercase, lowercase, weird characters. Type it in a couple times because I know these are like the hardest passwords ever, and I tend to mess them up the first time. So if you get an error, chances are you put the password in wrong. The port is often going to be 22. Most of the time it's 22. If it's not 22, the only other thing it could be is 21. So try both of those out as well. Once you've got the information in there, you just click on the Quick Connect, and it's going to connect. In this particular program, I have to go ahead and hit OK. It's going to tell me kind of what's going on over here. It's a little bit blurred out again because I was trying to keep some of the specifics of this site a secret. When you come to this page and it's logged in, you're going to have two choices, and these are really your two Moodle sites. Okay, you've got your production site and you've got your sandbox site. What we're going to do is access the sandbox site for now, just because I know this site and I've been on it, and nothing's going to change on it. When you're doing this for real, you'd probably want to do it on the production site. It might also be a good idea to test this out first on your sandbox site. Now, if you're doing that, you'd want to go through Ellis on and Datahub on the sandbox first and set up that scheduled task to occur within the sandbox site, and then upload it to the right one. You want to make sure that you're uploading it to the proper place that you've already set it all up in. So I'm just going to, for testing purposes and for demonstration purposes, go to sandbox, but it's the exact same process for production. So I clicked on the sandbox, and it's going to show a list of directories and folders. Sometimes it shows more or less, just kind of depending on what's on the site at the time. Whatever shows up, you're going to want to scroll through that list of directories and folders and find the one that looks something like RLIP. Right now, it's the RLIP stands for Remote Learner Integration Point. Integration Point was the old name of Datahub before it was changed, and there's still some kind of residual kind of back-end stuff that still has that IP rather than DH. So there's a good chance that yours is going to still say RLIP. In the future, one day it might change to RLDH. Once we finally get the updates made to and remove those old references to integration point versus Datahub. But it's really the same thing. So you're going to want to go to your RLIP. So I've opened up the RLIP folder, and as you see here, you've got a couple different options here. Just to point out, this is where the logs from every Datahub run are going to be stored. So if you wanted to, you could actually access all of the logs through this same system through FTP. Also, there's going to be a folder here for all of the different plugins that were available when we were looking at the interface on the Moodle side of things. Again, we're going to be wanting to upload this to the same place that we were looking at before on the site, and that's going to be the version 1 import. Okay, we're importing Moodle users, so we're going to want to use the regular version 1 import. If you're doing this to create lots of Ellis things, you're scheduling a task to create lots of Ellis class instances. In that case, you would want to use the RL import version 1 Ellis. Okay, so you're just going to want to make sure that everything is still the same, that you're lining everything up with the right plugin. So for now, I'm going to click on RL import version 1. There is a temp directory that's listed there, and that temp there is kind of where it moves the file that's up there while it's processing. Once a Datahub file has been processed, it deletes it, so that there's not something there for it to to process again. So it's kind of like a one-time thing. Once it's there and it's been processed, then Datahub's automatically going to delete it for you. Since we're looking at that the RL import, okay, the version 1 import, really the final step here is just to take this CSV file and then to drag it in and drop it in there. But there's kind of one more kind of bit of information. If you remember with Datahub, there's 3 different types of files you can run. You can always run a user file, a course file, or an enrollment file. because each one of those types of files kind of uses the same information in different ways. Like for example, an ID number. How does Datahub know if we're talking about an ID number for a user versus an ID number for a course, or an ID number for a specific Ellis thing? Okay, so the way that Datahub is going to know what type of file this is through the name of the file. So right now I just have it named something generic like sample user upload file. All right. So what I need to do is tell Datahub this is a user file, and I do that by just changing the name. So I'm changing it to user.csv. And that means that when Datahub processes it, it knows the name of the file is user, so that means it has user information in it. Okay. So with that done, the final step is just to click and drag it in. And as it's going to upload this in there, that is really the final step. So now that it's up there, what's going to happen is the next time that cron runs, and it's supposed to be a scheduled task, we set it to run every 10 minutes. So when that 10 minutes hits, it's going to notice that there's a file in here, and then it's going to want to process that right away. And it's going to keep processing it until all the records have been completed. And then once it's done, it'll delete the file, so there won't be any file there. And it'll just kind of wait until it gets another file uploaded to this very, very specific location. To double check things, if you wanted to, you could come back after the file's been processed and go to in your site, go to the Datahub logs. And again, you would probably want to wait required amount of time to make sure that it's been processed, but you would be able to go to the logs, do a search for maybe a specific time when you knew that it was going to run, and it would pull back that run basically, and then you could download the log, pull back the errors, sort for which records were able to be successfully processed versus which ones were not able to be processed. And again, that's pretty much it. It's a few steps. Again, the process is basically to summarize. You have to first create your upload file. All right. Then download it as a CSV. You're going to want to make sure that the Datahub has been set to run on a scheduled task, okay, by going to your manage plugins and scheduling a task, whether it's version 1 import or version 1 Ellis import. And then finally, make sure that you take that user file or whatever file type it is and change the name to user, course, or enrollment, and then FTP it up using a client. And then Datahub should do the rest for you.